and welcome back to part 5 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where today, as a mercenary, we need to get our name out there, and by doing that, well, it's a video game, so what do you think? It's side questing. As I mentioned in a previous video, I will be doing every single side quest available in this game that I can. There is one instance where if you do a side quest, it locks you out of another one, but if you do that other one, it locks you out of the other. Like, there's two of it where the path splits, basically. So I'll only show one of them in that instance, but in every single other instance, yeah, every side quest is being done. Which is why this video is a bit longer as well. This is our first, like, chunky part, because I crack all of them out in one day. Every side quest that we can do in Sector 7 is in this video. This isn't the only side quest in the game, obviously. This is just like the opening introduction. But this entire chapter is kind of designed to be Tifa's introduction chapter. And so they use the side quests to not only flesh out the characters we've got to know so far and flesh out Sector 7, but more specifically give you more pieces of the puzzle to Tifa's personality and who she is, like what she's been through, etc, etc. If you skip the side quests, you miss this, which is why I always do the side quests on every playthrough I go through this game. There's another chapter later on that's very similarly structured in that what it's designed to do, and equally there, I think you miss so much if you don't do the side quests. Admittedly though, the later side quests in the game are far better than Sector 7's side quests. I think Sector 7 houses the weakest side quests in the game, because they all feel a lot more on the generic side. Like this one, it's find 3 cats. There's another one where it's go fight some basic enemies. Like there's no like individual story with the side quests. It feels like just, you know, side quests in any game ever. But this only applies to Sector 7 in my opinion. Starting with the next batch of side quests when we get to the next real zone where that happens, they get a lot more immersive, they get a lot more involved, they feel a lot more dynamic. They're not so generic. It feels like this was like the testing ground for side quests when they were making the game, and then once they were a bit more comfortable, then they made the side quests for the rest of the game. And I'm hoping the quality of the late game side quests carry over into Remake Part 2, because I think, without spoiling anything just yet, the late game side quests, some of the stuff that you get right near the end before the final push, are genuinely really fun. And I think if that can be a good sign of what's to come, then the better. What you're gonna see here in this video as well is the glimmers of me not playing Final Fantasy VII Remake in a while, because the last time I really played through it was on the PS4, so it's been a little while, so I'm having to kind of like touch base again with some of the controls with map navigation to find side quests and whatnot. So you are gonna see me kind of fiddle around a little bit for like a minute or two to try and find my bearings. Because doing the main plot and fighting combat, that's one thing, but learning how to work this map, which admittedly isn't the most helpful, like it's not as bad as other games, but at the same time it's really not as good as other maps are in a lot of other games. Like if you set a waypoint to an objective, it will appear on the corner map, like which direction you should be going, but it won't like build much of a path. Like you have to kind of work out the path yourself. It will just say somewhere to the east or somewhere to the west, etc, etc. So you have to kind of go in that direction and navigate the routes yourself to get there. Whilst a lot of mini-maps in a lot of other games nowadays have kind of amended that, where if you set a waypoint, the game will make a path for you and say, okay, this is the direction you should be going to eventually get to where you need to go. Like it's not a bad map per se at all. It's a perfectly fine map and a perfectly fine navigation system. So like I said, you can just see where it is and read out the map and work it out yourself. It's just I've been spoiled by other games since 7 Remake that do that better and like do that navigation a lot more helpfully.
Screw this.
But once you've done the prerequisites of a side quest, it will usually come up saying, do you want to just warp over to where the side quest giver was to wrap up the side quest there? And more often than not, I'll say yes. There are a couple instances where it's actually in your best interest to say no. Like maybe there'll be an area where there's like 2 side quests where their requirements are like right next to each other, so you might as well do the other one instead of warping back, otherwise you have to run all the way back there afterwards. But Betsy's side quest with the cats is entirely here to teach you about exploring. because 2 of the 3 cats are obvious. Like, finding the one in front of the tavern is fine, and there's if you talk to people, you will figure out where the one hiding with the cat den is. It's just the one that's off to the side on the far eastern edge that you've just got to kind of find yourself by exploring. Or, if you were paying attention when we first visited, those cats have been there since the very moment we entered Sector 7. Well, I say that, I think they've been there since the moment it turned morning, so if you've been paying attention to your surroundings, you can work out where those cats are very quickly. And this is where Tifa is saying, now you've done one side quest, you've done enough that if you want to, you can return back to Tifa's bar and wrap up. But that's not what we're doing. We are going to continue doing side quests. There is going to be some main plot in this video, but that's because it's required. It blocks the path. When you go to return to Tifa's bar, something will happen before you can enter. And it will genuinely block the path. You can't do anything else until you do that. And it's in the way of a side quest, so we have to do it. So our hands are tied. I can't make it 100% side quest. I've got to detour into a little bit of the main plot. But it's not a big section. It's more there just to sort of break up the pacing of the side questing. But as we go in here and start analysing some enemies to get the assess down to work on Chadley's side quest, I want to take some time to talk about the music, which I know I've gushed about a lot, but one of the tracks that I feel like needs more attention than it tends to get is the Neighborhood Watch theme. I mentioned it in the last video that I genuinely like the theme. I find it catchy in its own way. Even though it's not like a high upbeat track that usually makes it catchy, it's one that tends to stick in my head a lot. And I mean that in a good way. Like, it's just a really nice, like, bouncy track that really does what it needs to do, and I have a lot of time for it. And you get to hear a version of it when you're in the Scrap Boulevard, but not fighting anything. But it's a slightly tweaked version, just to have a bit more, like, prepared for battle kind of feel to it. But once you've analysed those enemies, you can go back to Chadley and get the reward. If you're on any New Game Plus run, all assesses, sorry, when I can speak again, all assesses that you've done carry over, so Chadley's side quest gets done instantly. So if you come here in New Game Plus, it will immediately be done. But I cannot stress enough, the battle intel system, basically the Chadley's quest line, go for it. Always pay attention to it. When he has new reports he wants you to fill out, see what you can do to try and fill them out. Always work towards filling up more and more, because every single time you do one, you get good rewards. More often than not, it's materia. And they're really helpful materia too. So go for it. To get, look, there, magic elements. You use enough magic to exploit weaknesses, you will get wind materia. And that's something that's kind of a dick move on the game's part, but I kind of like that you can miss out on an entire quarter of the main element set if you don't do Chadley's battle intel. Because in Remake Part 1, I imagine it will expand more in Part 2, because in the original 7 there were a hell of a lot more elements. But if they gave you everything, then what would there be to look forward to, you know? But there are 4 core elements, and the way the weakness and strength system works is that they kind of bounce off each other. It's fire, ice, electric, and wind. Fire and ice are weak to each other, electric and wind are weak to each other. So any electric enemy use wind, but if you find like an enemy that's got wings, they'll probably be wind, so use electricity. An ice enemy will melt with fire, but equally fire will be put out by ice. So they balance out each other. Instead of it being a rock, paper, scissors like it is with a lot of other games, it is a duology of threats that are aiming at each other. But the only way to get wind materia is to get it from Chadley, from Battle Intel. No shop in this game will just sell it. So to get access to, you know, a whole quarter of that magic system, you have to do the Chadley's Battle Intel quest. And to be fair, it's an easy one. So don't stress about it too much. It's literally just exploit enemies' weaknesses. So if you're using assess anyway, you're gonna find out what enemies' weaknesses are. And because of how simple that system is, which, like I said, it's fire versus ice and electric versus wind, you'll catch on pretty quickly. Like, if you go to an enemy and they're on fire, like, you can just immediately use ice. You don't need to worry about assessing. I would highly recommend assessing as much as possible in this game, though, because there are later Chadley quests where it'll be like assess 30 or 40 enemies. And being able to have that almost done, if not straight up done, before it's even unlocked, can really save time in doing it. And some of the things you can discover on enemies by assessing them is interesting. They do have rather detailed logs.
That's too much to handle. I'm just messing with you.
And this item store owner, I know the whole point is that he's a dick to Cloud because he fancies Tifa and he sees us as like a threat to his crush. But I just find him really annoying, and his side quest of go kill the Doom Rat kind of fits the boot because it's a weird one. When I do like a first playthrough, like I'm not doing a new game plus sort of thing, like a fresh start, it's just normal were-rats, it's not any Doom Rats when we go over there. But anytime it's a new game plus run, the Doom Rat's first, and I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just something going on with my fortune. I assume it's intentional because they know that you know now what to look for, so they just changed it.
Allow me.
But it's just always something that's kind of an odd one, that you have to do this back and forth the side quest the first time round. But when you're on New Game Plus, the Doom Rats are here the first time round. But these Doom Rats kind of suck. They are hyper aggressive. I said they don't suck. They're good enemies in that sense. They are hyper aggressive compared to the were-rats, and they don't get stunned easily, which is why you're kind of seeing me getting knocked about a little bit here. It's not the only time I'm going to get knocked about in Sector 7. There's a section, it'll probably be in the next video, where I get beat up quite a lot over a stupid fight. I don't lose, thankfully. I've yet to lose in my recording. But I got beat up a lot, and I was like, what's going on here? But it's about time I show off a bit more Tifa. As I mentioned before, Tifa's entire game plan is about combo making. But as you can see, where it says triangle, rise and fall. That's because I spent her ATB into building up her strength. Because you can make it so she charges up her strength in an ATB bar. And if you do that, it will go into her triangle attack and go up to Omni Strike and then rise and fall. The reason why you want Rise and Fall and Omni Strike, and it goes into Tifa's entire game plan, is that she is how you expand stagger percentages. I mentioned in the very first video of this that stagger makes it so you do 160% extra damage. But you can make that number bigger. Tifa is how. Tifa's triangle attack manually forces up that number, but it goes up by a higher amount if you hit it with a Rise and Fall or an Omni Strike. So if you use double like the double charge up, the moment you stagger an enemy, Rise and Fall into Omni Strike into the uppercut, you're doing over 200%. It will be at like 205% at that point. Later on, there'll be like an attack. I can't remember what it's called. It's like something like Critical Strike or like Precise Strike or something like that, where that will also boost up the percentage, and it boosts it up by a hell of a lot. So if you like organize your situation so you have Rise and Fall good to go and a full ATB when an enemy staggers, you can crack 300% stagger. And there's actually a trophy in the game for hitting 300% stagger, so that is something worth doing. I believe it's either 200% or 250% for the Chadley report we'll get later on, which is one of the ones you really want to do because that one leads to a summon. That specific report leads to a summon, and the only reason I remember that is because of how many people miss it, because they don't realize how the stagger system works with Tifa, and so don't get it above 200 or 250. I can't remember which one it is. I've got over 200%. I think it's later this video I hit 200%, but I haven't hit 250 yet, so we'll find out when that Chadley report is unlocked whether I get that or not. But we picked up Cleansing from that side quest, and Cleansing's okay. But it's like status conditions aren't that much of a threat in this game. That there's one section where that pops up quite a lot, but as a whole, status conditions I kind of forget about, so we won't really level up Cleansing too much or bother with it too much. I just keep it on for now because we don't have much else. And so for the sake of showing it off, even though I don't think we hit a status condition to show it off during this video, I keep it around. But there is going to be a point where you're going to start seeing me prioritize certain materia over others. Well, you're kind of already seeing it, because Assess isn't coming off Cloud until I max it out. Because Assess, when it's maxed out, becomes Assess all targets instead of Assess single targets. Which is very helpful for those Chadley reports when you go into a fight and there's 5 different enemies, and you can analyze all of them in one ATB. But once you've done a few, come back to Weimer and he'll give you a much bigger quest, where you'll be able to fight an optional mini-boss. And this one can be kind of tough if you're not prepared for it, because it's a 2-phase fight. You do some damage and then it will run away, and then you have to chase it, and then you fight it again once you find it. But this enemy does quite high damage for this stage in the game, and is a hound-based enemy. You know, it's all like the Shinra dogs that we fought in Chapter 1 and 2. And the Hound-based enemies, if you haven't noticed already, are very aggressive. Here it is.
Here I go.
The Wraith Hound. And you've just got to be wary with it. Like, this thing is a bit odd with how it moves. Like, it's very erratic. So you can get just surprised because it will just run away. And you're like, wait, where's it going? And it suddenly turns around on a dime and whacks you.
Let's do it right.
As I get Cloud to analysis it. And it's weak to ice, which is helpful. Because I think I've got someone equipped with ice. At least I hope so. And you see, I've got Tifa putting more into the Unbridled Strength in the background. So now she's got either Omni Strike or Rise or Fall. I haven't been paying attention to her side to find out. Okay, she's on Omni Strike. And you see, there's the battle intel. The game will always keep track of the battle intel on the side of the screen for you. And that's annoying. I just got the second Unbridled Strength and we hit the end of phase 1, so it runs away. And it just ends the encounter. You can't chase it now. You have to chase it like you can't chase attacking it is what I mean. You have to let it run away and then follow it to its new den. And then you get to start the fight up again. Which is a little annoying, but what can you do? And if you've been with this channel for a while, you'll know the more I love a game, the more I criticize it, which is why I'm like nitpicking in these little details, like the fact that the map's not as beginner friendly as some other games. Like, I find it a little clunky in places. Like how this side quest is a little, like, you have to chase the thing, you can't just fight it. Or how Sector 7 side quests I think are kind of weak, but they get better later on. It's because I love the game at large. The entire game in its entirety I love to death, and I say it's one of, if not my favorite game of last generation. So of course I'm going to critique it because I want to see it expand and grow in the future parts.
No need to worry.
Because I imagine, like, a lot of people are saying, oh, I hope part 2 soon, and I imagine it won't be. I imagine it'll be after 16. Like, because it'll just be, like, advertisement suicide to have 2 Major League Final Fantasies being advertised at the same time. And if you're about to say, well, didn't that happen with 15 and 7 Remake Part 1? Let it be known that 7 Remake Part 1 vanished off the face of the earth for 4 years after it got announced, and then 15 did its entire advertisement campaign. So I think that's fine. And also 15 was on and off development for a decade. So I think Square had to kind of get a move on for the sake of stocks. To say, yeah, there is actually a Final Fantasy game coming out. Which then took another 5 years to come out. But I heavily doubt Part 2 will take 5 years. I'm expecting it to be a 2023 game, if I'm honest. I'm expecting early 2022 or early to mid 2022 will be 16. Because I think we're getting a new trailer before the end of the year. I don't think it will come out this year. I think anyone who thinks it's going to come out this year is crazy. But I think we're going to get a trailer that will have a release date on it this year. And then I think it will come out early to mid next year, and then it will be late 2023. If not, like, very start of 2024 it will come out. So it won't be 5 years. It will still be a long while, I know, but it won't be 5 years before Part 2. And then I genuinely think after Part 2, because Part 2 will have the open world, or whatever they do with the actual world of Final Fantasy VII developed, that Part 3 onwards will be like every other year. Like, I genuinely think they're going to start pumping out pretty quick once Part 2 is done. But we don't know how big Part 2 is going to be. Because as I've said like many times before, Part 1's only Midgar, but in the original game that's the prologue. And some people are threatening that it's going to be like 5 or 6 parts before they do the whole game. And personally, I don't think it will be that many. I think it will be 3 or 4. I genuinely do, because once you get into the open world, a lot of people forget how spaced out some parts are. Like, I think Part 2, like, some people are saying Part 2 will go all the way to the end of Juneau, which, maybe, because Juneau's the next, like, big city, per se. But at the same time, I know they expanded this game out a lot, so I'm aware of what I'm saying here. There isn't that much that happens in Juneau, other than the parade and, you know, leaving their country to go to a different part of the world. And so, who knows, maybe they'll make it a big section, but I don't know if they'll make it the end section of Part 2. I think Part 2 could go all the way as Gold Saucer, if they wanted to.
I'll bet a lot of people
Like, I think, as much as I'd love for Part 2 to go all the way to the end of the original Disc 1, I think that's too large of a stretch. But I do think the end of Disc 1 will happen in Part 3 no matter what. And I genuinely think if Part 3 doesn't wrap up the whole thing, Part 4 will. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Part 2... If Part 2 goes just to the end of Juneau, Part 3 will go all the way to the end of Disc 1. because disc 2 and disc 3 are nowhere near as big, and I think you can absolutely reduce them down and alter things around to make it fit into a one part and still have every single piece of content that needs to be in it. But now we can buy wind, and here's the cheeky thing. I go to buy several because I've got enough money to buy several, except no you don't. The moment you buy one, the fucker skyrockets the price because they're that rare, so you only get one for cheap. If you want another one, you've got to spend 2,000, which is evil. Chad Lee's an evil little shit. It's like, oh, he used to work for Shinra, did he?
Hello.
But way in the back alley behind Tifa's bar is this junk dealer that you can talk to that has his own quest that he's going to want for you. But this one will only start popping up once you start to get more of a name for yourself. But the last couple side quests will only pop up once you've done the others, because you need to have enough of a name for yourself that they trust you to do it in the first place. But this is around the point where we're going to detour and to do some main plot stuff, because to go towards this next side quest, we're going to pass by Tifa's bar, which kicks off a cutscene which locks us into the next plot thing until we're done. But it doesn't mean we're locked out of the side quest, it's just we got to do that first. If you see, like, next to the buy icon, like a number, like in brackets, it means he's got a unique stock item which will be sold out once you buy it. In that instance, it was an ether. Unique stock is tied to shops and not tied to timers or anything like that. So if you just know what shop has what unique thing, you can go get it. If you go talk to this guy, you'll get a weird remix of the Chocobo theme to add to your music collection. I don't know if I'll get every single track, but I'll try and get as many as I can for the music collection.
Stay away from me! Hold it! Settle down now.
Get off me, assholes! I didn't do shit!
Shut up, punk!
Or what, huh? Screw you! Ow,
What's
come
going on?
Why you gotta do me
Somebody
like
went and
that?
stole some
Just
blasting
messing
aid from a
with you.
Shinra warehouse. So public security started asking questions, and you know how Johnny gets.
It's because of the reactor bombing, I bet. I could be wrong, but something tells me they're not gonna settle for just roughing him up this time.
We've got to save him, Cloud.
Is he Avalanche?
No. He doesn't really know what we do. But he has his suspicions. And he's a talker.
And that right there is the introduction to a very small side character in the original that they've given a little bit of a promotion. He's still a side character through and through, but they do a lot more with him. That's Johnny. Johnny's a funny fucker. He's an idiot, but he's funny. And I have a lot of time for him, and I really like what they did to expand him, but still keep Johnny, you know, Johnny. Like, he's still a side character, and nothing. Why did I carry that box all that way? Why did I? But he's an idiot, but he's our idiot. And I think, like, the way the remake handled him, they did a lot more with him than they did in the original 7. Because in the original 7, he was a side character that a lot of people never even realized existed. Like, he's someone that you had to kind of bump into yourself and talk to yourself to even realize existed. But if you did, there were a number of small things throughout the entire game. You could bump into him repeatedly, and little things would happen. Whilst in the remake, they've expanded that and made it that no, Johnny is around. Although he's still a side character, he's a slightly more dominant side character. Like, he's more prominent and more, like, you know, around. But the problem here is that Johnny, with how much of an idiot he is, he might, you know, share information he shouldn't unaware. So we need to kind of stop him before he gives up Avalanche's position accidentally, just because he doesn't know Avalanche. He isn't a part of Avalanche's group. It's just he's both smart enough to maybe cotton on, but stupid enough to not cotton on enough to shut up. But now we've got the introduction of another little mechanic here. It's a nice thing that gets nerfed in hard mode. This bench is just a rest point, similar to if you go back to the bed, your room in the Sector 7, like the hotel bit. That is just a free restoration of all your HP and magic. In hard mode, it's only your HP it will restore. Next to almost every single bench in the game is a vending machine, though, to restore your supplies.
Let him go.
Who are you? The cavalry?
Is that who I think it is? Oh, hell yeah! You guys really came to save me! Ow,
Hey! Now you think think you're doing?
Here we go.
Alright, combat time. We had to kick Johnny down just to make sure he stayed quiet. And there is a slightly stronger enemy here with that elite security officer, so I'll try and assess him before too much later. But at the same time, none of these guards have high health. Which I think is why I stopped the Cloud. It's like, Cloud doesn't have any ATB to, you know, stop this. So make sure I assess them before it's too late.
Deal with that.
Assess. Security. There we go, that's him done. Most humans are weak to fire, because of course they are. I mean, theoretically they should be weak to everything, considering humans, but, you know, video game. Fire makes enough sense. Damn, and that thing died quick. I didn't even get to assess that. Oh well.
What now?
He's a talker.
Huh? Whoa. Whoa!
No!
You're not gonna... Hold up! Wait! Don't do it, man!
You want to live? Then get the hell out of town.
You got it, boss! You ain't never gonna see my face again! I swear!
Are you sure about this? It's a big risk.
I know, but it's fine.
And them?
No more. Cloud, you're scaring me.
Ooh, now I want to talk about how fucking amazing the writing in this game is. This game, I mentioned before that I love that this game truly understands how the original cast of Final Fantasy VII works, and doesn't just do what the compilation does and kind of dumb a lot of characters down to simple assets, and a lot of those times those simple things aren't even tied to what the original characters were. But that scene, and this conversation going on now, to me was like the biggest proof. Was, oh no, they get it, they understand. They understand what Tifa's like, and how Tifa really thinks, and how she was in the original 7, and they understand how Cloud was at the start of 7. Because Cloud does change a lot throughout the journey of this game, all the characters do. It's one of the main strengths of Final Fantasy 7, is that every character develops a lot, and develops really well. But they understood how early Cloud is. He isn't just some moody loner, he is this mercenary, almost mechanicalized killer. And that scares Tifa, because her childhood friend is now someone who would kill without giving it a second thought. Of course it would scare her. And that bit there where she says, like, your eyes, they're different. Cloud, when his almost mechanically engineered brain, immediately goes, oh, it's all the Marco, you know, because he's a soldier, and all the soldiers have Marco DNA, like, embedded into them, so their eyes glow. He says, oh, it's the Marco, remember? It's like, no, it's that your eyes are cold, dude. There's no love in them anymore. There's just this mercenary that just is prepared to kill and silence talkers without giving it a thought. But anyway, now we can go back on and do the last remaining side quests. Both of them involve this little extension area, which I think is actually kind of nice. If you don't do the side quests and just beeline for Tifa's bar to leave the 7th heaven, you never touch this area. Your reward for doing a side quest is getting to explore a new area, which has its own unique rewards and a couple unique enemies in it. So I really liked that. I like that there isn't, you know, a trouble for your efforts. Because if you try and come here without doing the side quest, the dude at the gate will say, no, sorry, if you don't have a reason to be here, I'm not letting you in. It's too dangerous. But now we have a reason, we're allowed. One of the enemy variants in here, though, is kind of annoying when we've just got Cloud and Tifa, because they like to climb on the wall. And another thing I will critique on this game is that air combat for the physical characters, where they want you to use the ranged characters more, is very underwhelming. Air combat is a thing. There's no jump button, but if an enemy is high up enough, Cloud or Tifa will auto jump to their level and then do like a set 3 or 4 hit combo.
This won't take long.
But it's a set combo that you can't alter, you can't change, you can't alter it with your stance. There's nothing that you can be altered with it with materia. It's a fixed small combo, and it's the only thing they have. Whilst Barrett, you can just shoot them, and so it's the better option. And so I know it's because they want you to use the ranged characters, but when it's things like these guys, the Gorges, that can go on walls and so go too high, they're just annoying because you don't have Barrett as an option, so you just got to deal with the physical combat in the air being kind of underwhelming. So I want there to be a materia or something in the next part that just expands air combat. The main one that I think a lot of people would appreciate is unifying a lot of physical combat materias into one. Like parry, deadly dodge, and like a couple others we'll get later on. Make them all like battle plus materia. Make it all in one sort of thing. Or maybe it's a materia that only starts with deadly dodge, but when you level it up, gains parry, gains the others. Gains combo plus, things like that. Like, all that stuff. Like, instead of making it that they're all their own materia, make it so it becomes a universal one, because expanding gameplay mechanics, I feel like shouldn't strip away as much as it does from other materias in the game. I feel like making it so you have to earn it and reward it and have it in your arsenal is fine because of how the way the materia system works, but I think making it that if you want a full active arsenal, you have to give up 3 or 4 slots of your materia at the end game. It shouldn't be that way. I feel like it should be unified, and then chuck in air combo with it for all I care. Just then air combo gets more like fluidity later on, especially because there's gonna be more characters obviously as more parts come out. We don't meet the entire roster. There's, off the top of my head, including intermission, 4 characters I think. Let me think, because intermission adds Yuffie, so that makes it 5 because there is another character we're going to meet in this. Actually no, 6 because there's another character at the very end, so that leaves Vincent, Kaishi, and and Sid. There we go. I had to think for a second. So there's 3 left. There's 3 left of the the final roster of Final Fantasy VII that we won't meet. And if you've never played the original 7 but know the characters, then I suppose that's a spoiler, but you should really know. The only one is Yuffie, but you know, that might be a surprise to you, but then that was DLC that they advertised, so you know that Yuffie's been showcased now. So it is just Vincent Valentine, Kaishi, and Sid. I don't know why I always kind of misplace and forget Sid. To be honest, I think Sid's like next to Kaishi, but Kaishi I only remember because Kaishi's so weird. But Sid, I think, ends up being one of the more forgettable characters in the game. And that's not to say he's bad. He's a great character, but he's a great character amidst fantastic characters. And those enemies are actually in the room with us, but for some reason they aren't fightable yet. And so I could interact with the thing that you can't in combat now, when I think you're supposed to fight those enemies first. And we can't interact with this yet because we need the key. Because if I waddle over here, and then when I waddle back, it's like, oh, now they're here. And we can continue this quest to fight more of these things. Which was kind of just odd, but now you get to see what I mean. Like, that is Tifa's combo. She can't do anything else when she auto jumps up to an enemy. And Cloud can't do anything else than his 3-hit strike when he goes up to attack an enemy. So trying to use magic or ranged elements is your ranged attacks even is your go-to. But when you're doing this side quest, you've only got Cloud and Tifa. And it's not like you can go back to Tifa's bar and pick up Barrett. Barrett doesn't rejoin your party during this chapter, so you will miss out doing these side quests if you think you can go get Barrett. It's just how it is. The moment you enter Tifa's bar, you're locked out of doing the rest of the side quests. So you need to do them all now and just put up with the problem. You just got to try and prioritize having magic, I suppose. In a lot of JRPGs, I tend to cut out load screens, but the 7 Remake on PS5 cut down the load screen so damn much that I've yet to feel the need to. If there's a particular load that comes later on that is a little bit longer, then yeah, I will cut it out. But as it stands, I don't feel the need to. I've yet to have a single load screen in this game that's gone on any longer than like 2 or 3 seconds, so I'm just like, you know what, it can stay. If there is a load screen that's like 8 or 9 seconds plus, then yeah, I'll absolutely cut it out like I do in anything else. But like, it's just, that's one of the many blessings of going from PS4 to PS5. The load screen, if we were doing it on the PS4 version, I'd absolutely be cutting out the load screens because a lot of them are pretty lengthy. Especially the initial load. Like, the game has a faster load than a lot of other games do on like late PS4 that are really high tech. Like, they don't have the obnoxious super loads that some other games do, but it's still kinda lengthy. Once you do this side quest though, he'll start selling high potions. Only 3 because they don't need to get too many yet. But it's still nice to have. High potions are just stronger potions. Later on we'll get mega potions, which are even stronger, but that's much later on from now. And you see, this is me kind of dangling the map and trying to work it out. Like, okay, no, there is one more. Back just opposite the area we was in. But as we head back, I pass by Johnny's parents, because you can find out by talking to them that, yeah, Johnny absolutely did skip town. He took Cloud's advice to heart and booked it out of fear, presumably. They said declared he was leaving town to go on a journey. I kind of like the spirit. I like Johnny's parents. You don't get to really talk to them like at all, and they're not even proper side characters. They're just generic NPCs. But you get enough of an idea from the odd lines you get with them of what they are like with Johnny and how they are. And I just kind of like that they are that kind of quirky parents that have the weird kid that's just reaching for the stars. But like Icarus is never getting there, so to speak. But here's the last side quest. This one is only available to you if you've done the rest.
Then maybe you can help us out.
Where Gwen here will say, hey, there's some real big threats, but these two guards aren't doing anything about it. Do you want to do something about it instead?
You should be able to find one inside one of the crates. I forget which.
But she says there's a key, and the key is in a crate, but she doesn't know which one, so you got to go smash them all. It's in the same one each time. I smash all the crates as I go anyway, because you might get extra trinkets. The main thing I'm after is Kupo coins, because there's a specific shop way later in the game that will only take Kupo coins. So I always go on my way to break them, just in case. But it's actually the set of boxes next to the bench that's in this area. So if you want to, you can absolutely beeline back for it. You can also get potions on occasion, which is always appreciated. Saves you having to buy more. And a little bit more experience with killing these Gorgons when it goes amiss. And so there, we have now acquired Triple Slash, because we've used it enough to max out its proficiency. So now if we swap Cloud's swords, we will still have it. Like we've got that ability for keeps now. And it's also the same reason why I'm using dive kicks. We just got it for Tifa, so when we get a new weapon for Tifa, we don't have to worry about losing dive kick. There is one particular weapon Cloud gets later on in the game that is a nightmare to get its skill for, because the weapon sucks. And it's a joke weapon, but it still counts as a new weapon, joke weapon or not. So you have to put up with the fact that if you want its skill, which to be fair is a kind of nice skill. Like, I almost never use it, but it is kind of cool. It makes it so there's a unique attack when you use it that will also alternate. I can't remember if it's which mode it is, but it will alternate between one of the modes of Cloud's has. So I think it will go from Operator to Punisher, or Punisher to Operator. So I honestly can't remember which way it is, but the skill also does it whilst attacking, so you can make a better combo flow whilst incorporating both styles that Cloud has without dropping the combo just to press triangle sort of thing. Like the attack will auto do it, so it's kind of nice in that regard, but that's kind of all it's got going for it, if I'm honest. And it's at that sort of time that I think a certain Infinity Slash comes available to you that is just way better. Like Infinity Slash is Cloud's best skill in the game, next to Counter Strike, but Counter Strike you don't get until endgame, so don't worry about that yet. Like Counter Strike is tied to the last weapon Cloud can get in this game. So like I said, it's so far away right now. Which is a kind of a shame, because I would have loved to have gotten Counter Strike early, and you really feel how strong it is in the hard mode playthrough in New Game Plus, because it's just such a great damage dealer if you can time the enemy's attack right, because it does do what you think it does with it being called Counter Strike. It puts Cloud into a stance that lasts a couple seconds, and if the enemy attacks him during that stance, he will counter them with a really heavy hitting attack. Like stronger than the punishing mode basic counter. This Cerulean Drake likes to spam ice attacks, which would make you think it's ice elemental, but no, it is a wind-based weakness for some reason. Like, it's kind of an exception to the rule. It's got wings, so you'd make it think it's treated as electricity, so you'd want to use electricity skills on it. And it's got ice attacks, so you'd think, oh, maybe it's weak to fire. No, it's weak to wind. It's got wings, and you've got to dishevel its wings. That's the logic of why it's weak to wind. It's because you've got to dishevel it, you've got to ground it by using wind attacks. Then once you can get it low enough to actually beat the crap out of it, as you just saw there, as Tifa whacked it over the wall. The ragdoll on the enemies is kind of nice. I think the ragdoll on items and like the physics on items is really, really good, but the ragdoll on enemies is kind of nice when it wants to be. But when you come back, this is, like I said, this is the last side quest. So once you've done this,
I knew you were
your
the right
reward
guy
for doing
the
every
job.
side quest will become clear
There's
to
no
you.
denying you're the real deal.
But is
Not
it an
like
interesting
these
one? And
idiots
Cloud
with
does this a
your
couple
excuses.
times throughout the game.
Rather have one of
Once
you
he does a
than one
side
of
quest, he will then antagonize some of the people to kind of make a point that they should be
them. What
doing their own
exactly
work
is
a
it
bit
you're
more.
trying to say, Merc?
Because there are a couple people, like Gwen here is an example, where it's like Cloud saying, like, you know, you shouldn't just be getting barking orders and getting everyone else to do everything. You should be looking out for yourself a little bit too here. But Gwen takes it the wrong way and just takes it as, oh, you're an ex-soldier, so you're just looking out for this for these guys. And it's like, well, no, but he got his point across. You see, at the end there, she says, well, fine, we'll just do our own work, which is what he wanted. Yeah, he antagonized her for it, but he got what he wanted.
Okay then.
And that's every side quest done. But once you've done it, you unlock a hidden quest. And this usually applies to doing every side quest in a given area as a rule. So go out of your way to do it. And this is will lead to an event that is tied to the most annoying trophy to get in the game that I have. I haven't actually platinumed this game, which is might be crazy to some of you. I've done the hard mode playthrough and I've done all the awkward ones. The only thing I haven't done is get all the enemy skills, because I beat Marlboro in the arena and I had it use bad breath on me like 6 times and it just didn't give it to me. And I eventually just killed the thing and couldn't be bothered to do the fight again because it's an annoying fight. And I haven't gone and fought the optional super boss that you can get from the secret battles either, which I don't know if I'll show it off yet. Because like I said, I've never actually done it, so who knows if I'll show it off or not when we get there. We'll work it out when we get there. I'll show off a little bit of hard mode, but only a little bit, because I'm not going to do a whole hard mode run again. It's literally doing the whole game twice, and, you know, no. But I will at least show it off a little bit, and show off what makes it unique and different. And I will show off, like, the battle mode, like, optional gauntlet system that this game has. And I'll be showing off some of enemy skill, because there are some nice ones. But that transition there is leading back to this hidden quest. If you head all the way back to Marl, back at the hotel, she will mention that you need to change your own water filters because you've changed everything else. So it's like, oh, okay, we'll go do that. But when we do that, Tifa will talk to us and it will lead us to an entirely optional scene that will have a choice in it. This choice matters more than you think. Much later in the game, there will be a point where your choice will affect what Tifa actually wears. There's a trophy in the game for seeing every single possible costume in that chapter. So meaning you have to do this 3 times, which is what makes it annoying. You have to do all the side quests in chapter 3 times to get the different side quests, to get the different costume, to see it in the, and I think it's like chapter 9. So it's like way later in the game.
Sure.
And I did it. I got the trophy. I grinded it out. It took forever, but I did it. But we need to go back to our room and change the water filter. I'll say they're not called hidden quests, they're called discovery quests, but it's the same idea. It's ones that you can't just get, you have to find them one means or another, and in this instance it's do all the side quests. So once we change our own water filter, we can go back and pester Tifa, which will initiate a lengthy cutscene that said we'll have a choice in the middle. Be honest on your first playthrough with what one you want to see, but at the same time remember what one you pick, because if you go for platinum, you don't want to do this many more times than you have to, because it does get rather grindy. So when you're ready, talk to Tifa.
Finally. So, after you left the village, I let you off the hook before, back at the hall, but not this time.
Well, when we were kids, everybody wanted to be a soldier, right?
Yeah, I remember they were on the news every day during the war.
Thing is, by the time I finally made it in, they didn't need heroes anymore. It was nothing like what we dreamt of. It was just working for Shinra. Just...
I'm sorry. I know it's a touchy subject.
Not exactly small talk. Especially with someone you haven't seen in a while.
I get it. Still, it's kind of funny. Us going our separate ways, thinking that must be it. That we'd never meet again. And then here, of all places, we do. You know what? We should totally celebrate. Let's dress up and hit the town.
Really?
I mean, why not? It'll be fun.
Do you even have fancy clothes?
Not like fancy, but I'll figure something out. What do you think would suit me, huh?
Be honest with yourself. No one will judge. Put whatever you feel like. I go with refined.
Something refined.
Yeah, I guess we're not kids anymore. Be sure to pick an outfit that goes with mine, okay?
Will do.
This is gonna be so much fun. You'll see.
Yeah. Maybe.
And on that happy note, I think it's time we headed back to the bar. Come on.
You don't need a break?
Honestly, I'm feeling pretty good. Moral isn't always right, you know.
And after that truly adorable scene, I'm going to wrap it up. Next time on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, we're going to get back to the main plot and go back to Tifa's bar. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.